Hey everybody, Pastor Hans here. Daily Dose. We're getting close to Christmas. It's one of those cold Minnesota winter days here, so I got my hat, my coat on. But today, as we have this entire week, we're talking about the Christmas story. And let me read something from Luke chapter 2 for you. We hear this every Christmas Eve. And there were shepherds living out in the field. There were shepherds living out in the fields nearby, keeping watch over their flocks at night. And to those shepherds, an angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were rightfully terrified. But the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid. I bring you good news that will cause great joy for all the people. Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord. This will be a sign to you. You will find a baby wrapped in cloths and lying in a manger." Question for you. If you had big news, if you had earth-shattering news that would change the future of life on planet Earth, who would you tell that news to? Where would you want to get that news out to? Would you go to the major news networks? Would you go to the halls of Congress? Would you try and somehow get to the president? Would you get to Elon Musk? Or maybe somehow you'd write a book and want it to sell on Amazon. You'd get on the radio, you'd get on the TV. You would find people with power to get that word out. But isn't it interesting as we read the story, who God tells the story of his son coming into the world to? It's shepherds. I don't know if you know anything about shepherds, but shepherds were sort of the lowest of the low in that ancient society. They were sort of on the level with tax collectors and sick people, prostitutes. You see, shepherds spent their days out in the fields. They were dirty. And in that ancient society, religious people had this idea that sort of an outward cleanliness was a sign of an inward cleanliness before God. If you were someone who lived amongst animals, if you slept outside, if you were dirty, well, people looked at you and sort of wrote you off. There's no way that you could become religiously clean enough to even be able to enter into the temple. God certainly must look down on you. But isn't it interesting? Every Christmas, we hear the very same story, and sometimes I don't think we realize how big of a deal this is, that God chose scummy, foul-mouthed shepherds out in the sticks to be the very ones who would be the first to visit his son as he entered this world. And here's what else is ironic. About 30 years later, this Jesus would grow up and he'd do it again. He didn't select a group of political elites. He didn't choose a crowd of the rich and famous. He didn't choose the religious muckety-mucks of his day to be his advisors, to be the ones who would carry out his work in the world. No, he chose some scuzzy fishermen. Nobody's really. He hung out in the sticks near the Lake Galilee. You see, Jesus does this again and again. And what it reminds me is that it's people like you and me, everyday, ordinary people, that this God came into the world to choose, to be with, to know that we are loved, right? This God of ours didn't come for the political muckety-mucks. God didn't come into this world for those who maybe wield all the economic power. God didn't come into this world, I am quite certain, for the religious elite. In fact, it was the religious elite that Jesus again and again was criticizing. It was people like me, pastors and synagogue workers and scribes. Here's the thing, this God of ours came for people like you. Everyday, ordinary people that are just trying to make a go of it. Everyday, ordinary people who feel like sometimes they just can't get a break. Everyday, ordinary people who look at all those people on TV, look at the people running for office and go, oh my Lord. You see, Jesus came into this world for the everyday, ordinary. People like those shepherds, and people like you and me. Thank God, huh? Thank God this God did. This Christmas, when you join us for worship here at Calvary, I hope as you hear the Christmas story, you maybe hear it a little differently. At home, we set up our nativity scenes. We sing "All is Calm, All is Bright" every Christmas. But that story, it was a disruptive story. Back in that ancient world, it wasn't what anyone expected. And thank God that's the case. Folks, thanks so much for tuning in today. If you're watching on YouTube, if you'd like us, maybe you'd share it with somebody else. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the bell so you get notifications of future episodes. And if you're watching on Cable Access 181, invite a friend to watch with you tomorrow. Thanks so much, everybody. Merry Christmas.